My name is Julie, and as was just said, I usually give talks like this in my capacity as an academic researcher, so I try to be very objective and clinical and unbiased and all of that. But today I'm actually here wearing my hat as an advisor to the IOTA Foundation, and so I'm going to throw caution to the wind and show you a little bit of my passion, which is using these technologies for social good. So let's figure out if I can, here we go, the big green button. There we go. So we all know that distributed ledger technologies are awesome. We can do really cool things that weren't possible in the past, like have frictionless direct global markets. This is a screenshot from Open Bazaar. We can create opportunities for micro-scale sustainable investment in things like decentralized power grids in off-grid communities in sub-Saharan Africa. Super cool. We can help integrate the unbanked into the global economy for the first time. Those 2 billion people that we hear about who still don't have access to the banking system. That's great, but can distributed ledger technologies go the last mile? So we still have 1.6 billion people who don't have electricity in the world. We have only 40% of the population of the world has reliable internet access today. And we have also, among those who do have reliable internet access, a number of them only have partial internet access because they live in places where their access is censored in some way or otherwise blocked. So these are big, big problems, and the question is, how can we make sure that these revolutionary new technologies that we've been hearing about for the past couple of days and that many of you here are building actually do reach those people that we just talked about and don't worsen rather than improve the digital divide? So I'm going to look for inspiration today to developments that are happening in the Internet of Things space, which is obviously centrally related to blockchain, but wasn't where it started. And we're going to talk a little bit about how that might potentially provide some inspiration for moving forward in this last mile problem. So what do you get when you combine blockchain and the Internet of Things? As we're hearing a lot, we get a machine economy, machine-to-machine economy, machine self-owned economies, machine economies in which artificial intelligence or machine learning is helping figure out how the ecosystem works. But obviously, all of those things take electricity, and they take internet access. So we're moving in this model away from dumb decentralization to smart centralization, and then now to smart decentralization, to try and build this new sharing economy, where we have devices trading resources among each other with various types of, I completely agree with our last speaker, controls and things in effect to think about the governance now rather than later. But in order to do that, it's difficult to make all these machines interact because we need to have a lightweight architecture that's capable of processing far more transactions than any public blockchain that we have currently available. Far more transactions, and also to be able to do it in a transaction cost-free way. So what the development team at IOTA came up with was they went back to the drawing board and they said, okay, we're not going to build a blockchain, we're going to build a tangle. So a tangle is like a blockchain without the blocks or the chain. And essentially, it is based on technology called directed acyclic graphs. This is a 15-minute talk, and so there's no way we can talk about directed acyclic graphs. If you want to know the technical details, read the white paper, or you can come up to me in the break, and I'll point you to the developer resources on Reddit and GitHub, etc. So basically, the main idea is you have cryptographically secure data in the tangle. So each new transaction that gets broadcast to the network, in order to get confirmed itself, has to do sort of a mini proof-of-work algorithm to confirm 2 other transactions somewhere nearby it. It doesn't get to select which transactions it confirms. It gets told which transactions to confirm. That's part of the security features. And this enables micro-scale transactions to happen very quickly. And you can actually do it in a transaction fee way. So that if you send 0.01 cent from one machine, the other machine gets the full 0.01 cent without any transaction fee costs being lost because there's no mining in the system. So the miners aren't taking a cut. So the great news is it scales. and it becomes faster, actually, the more people participate. The bad news is it's not really secure until it scales. So at a small number of users, you need extra mechanisms in place in order to provide security features. Again, technical stuff, we can talk about it in the break. There's been about 4 billion transacted so far on the IOTA network with no fees. And the other cool thing about it is that it's partition tolerant. So you can actually develop offline, off-tangle clusters that go along in an off-tangle way for a while and then reattach to the main tangle. This is something that's in experimental development through the Flash network on IOTA and other experiments. Obviously, there are really difficult economic incentive problems to figure out here about how you make sure that people don't try and spend the same funds simultaneously in different tangles and things. But there are possible solutions to that as well. So the focus of today is how can these things help with the last mile problem. So there's a new development that's being researched very actively in a lot of different corners of many different spaces. And opportunistic mesh networks, you can Google this if you're not familiar with this terminology already. Basically, these are networks that function in an asynchronous way so that the network doesn't all have to be connected at the same time. They don't need constant internet access. They don't need a constant power supply. They can carry machine-to-machine messages and also human-to-human messages, encrypted ones, securely. And the inbuilt crypto economics of the system is able to allow people who have extremely limited resources, like people among these 2 billion unbanked or 1.6 billion without reliable electricity, to actually participate. So you build it into the system that they actually get rewarded for transmitting messages. Now, how can you actually do this in practice? I'll just give a concrete example in the interest of time, just one. So Refunite is an organization that was started by 2 Danish brothers, the Mikkelsens, back maybe 10 years ago, because they happened to meet a refugee, I think he was from Sudan, who was trying to find his family. And it turns out it's super hard to find your family if you're a refugee using existing legacy systems. Because you come into a refugee camp, you're fleeing some kind of bad situation, you have no documents, you have no papers, your family maybe got split up and went to other refugee camps, you don't even know what country they're in. So you get some sort of initial intake processing from the Red Cross or whoever is running the refugee camp. They take what details you give them, they enter it into some kind of database, which may or may not ever talk to the database of the camp down the road. It makes it extremely difficult to find your family members. They helped this guy. I think it took them about 8 years to find his brother, and they finally reunited them. And they started thinking about how can we do this in a more efficient way? How can we use technology to do this in a more efficient way? And so what they have built is essentially a system that uses an opportunistic mesh network on cell phones in refugee camps. And it can work over internet, obviously, but it can also work over Bluetooth. You could theoretically do it using radio waves. You could use all kinds of different satellite, all kinds of different communication mediums to make this work. And what it does is it allows tiny packets of messages to hop from one person's phone to the next in an opportunistic way. So I happen to be in a camp somewhere in Sudan, and I walk past someone else who has a message that they want to exchange with me. We have a Bluetooth exchange. It goes from my pocket to their pocket. We keep walking. Then I end up in some other camp in Zambia or something like that, and my message, I keep passing the message forward. So it just happens opportunistically whenever the devices have a chance to transact, so that eventually the message reaches its destination. There are a lot of really complicated design features I'm completely skipping over here. But that's the basic idea. And it's super cool because it allows you to reach people who don't have electricity and who aren't constantly connected. And they have a huge database of people that they've been able to work with in a couple of countries, and they're constantly expanding. So what does this, when you combine that with a technology like IOTA, which has no transaction fees, then you can potentially find a way to actually pay people to carry these messages. Because one of the big challenges, if you have a cell phone but you don't have you don't have reliable internet access, and you don't have electricity at home, is how do you recharge your cell phone? You have to go to a kiosk, and you have to pay somebody, usually using something like M-Pesa, to charge your phone for you for an hour or two, so that then you have internet access again. If people can be paid, however, for participating in the network, micropayments that will cover those costs, then you can actually make it economically possible for them in a human-to-human way to transmit messages all over the globe. And to the extent that they're able to do so in countries where the internet is banned or censored, you can even get past that barrier as well. So really cool stuff. They're developing all kinds of ways of making this usable also for people who are illiterate. Lots of challenges, but extremely exciting stuff. So how can you get involved? Start building stuff, please, that that solves shared global problems. Here are a couple of examples of hackathons. The one on the right happened already in Oslo earlier this year. UN Women sponsored a hackathon to figure out how to help women refugees, and some cool solutions came out of that, or ideas. On the left, there's going to be a hack for climate to coincide with the Conference of the Parties of the Paris Climate Agreement in November. So if you're interested in climate change and ways to use DLTs to solve climate change, by all means apply and participate in that. And generally speaking, just show governments how to achieve their policy objectives using DLTs, like Refunite is doing. The IOTA Foundation, by the way, is, I've been working on this for quite a while now. The IOTA Foundation has just recently received the regulatory approval from the German regulatory authorities to actually be constituted as a proper foundation under German law here in Berlin. Woohoo! I'm really excited about this. So this will be the first foundation in Germany to be capitalized using crypto assets. Most of them, as most of you probably know, are in Switzerland for various reasons, but we managed to have it happen here in Germany. We're excited to have the full weight of the regulatory authority of the European Union behind us, and we want to do this in a way that, that really helps society advance. So there is a $10 million ecosystem fund available through the foundation. If you're a developer and you want to participate, you want to build solutions like this, we would love to hear from you, especially if you happen to be a full-stack developer who knows DAGs. There are probably like 2 of you in the world. But if that's you, then please get in touch. And this is my contact info. Happy to talk during the break over muffins and coffee.